Hi, this is a review of the Mezquita Classe Cajon. Leiva make 3 Mezquita Cajons in the range, the red and the claro, which are subject of a separate review, and the most expensive one in the line, which is the Classe. Immediately as you look at this cajon, you can see a difference. There is this amazing artistic pattern and artwork on the front, and the other thing is that it appears black, but as we move in and get close to it, you can see that actually it's a deep stained wood, and the natural grain of the Russian birch shows through the finish. So this is a much more artistic looking cajon. It is essentially the same construction as the claro and the red cajons, so it's completely Russian birch with a 4mm front tapper face here. The Russian birch is a slightly denser birch, so produces a really nice wide range of tones. Birch is a wood that's used in the manufacture of high-end, top-end drums such as the Yamaha Recording Custom, which pretty much established Yamaha as a drum company back in the 70s. Birch has a very wide dynamic range, so it really pulls out the bottom bass tones, and it also accentuates those high tones. So with these cajons you get a really nice punchy sound with a deep solid bass and really cracking distinct high tones. Beauty is that as a combination of the wood and of the construction, you don't get many middle tones in between, and so you get a very distinct sound of the bass and high tones, what we call good separation, which means that whether you use these instruments mic'd up or acoustic, they will always be distinct and stand out in your musical setting. Maybe worth just moving in and having a look at this additional artwork. You can see there the Classe actually has its own little badge on the front, and then we can see the intricate artwork in golds and whites. Very, very attractive finish. The important thing to remember though is basically these patterns are nothing more than paint on the wood. These are not going to affect the sound of the cajon. They're purely aesthetic, and therefore, as always, when you try these instruments, the most important aspect is what does it sound like, and for that we need to use our ears. Every instrument will sound different, even the same models by the same manufacturer, and so by trying them out we'll be able to find the cajons that best suit our sound preference and our sound requirements. If we move to the rear of the cajon, we see what by now is probably a familiar shape and picture. We have the back face, and we have the sound hole here, which on the Classe is situated towards the lower part of the drum. We also have the 2 Leiva DTS tension knobs, direct tension system knobs here, which adjust the tension of those twin sets of internal snare wires. By slackening these, you can reduce the tension on those wires, and so you create a more buzzy ballad type snare sound. If you increase the tension on these wires, then you get a more tight, funky sound. Important to remember, these tensioners do not need adjusting very far. Do not turn them right up and then try and slacken them off. Don't turn them one at a time or a turn at a time. Simply turn them between 1/8 and 1/4 of a turn, and that will give you a good starting point to the adjustment on your snare tension. Now if we move in a little closer on here, I hope you can see that this sound hole appears to be quite a lot deeper than we've seen on the other models, and that's because inside here what Leiva have done is placed a reinforcing ring, but it's also effectively a sound port. What that does is it takes the bass tones and it produces more focus to them. So from an acoustic point of view, the Classe Cajons do tend to be renowned for their more punchy, more solid and more focused bass tone. But as always, we have the Russian birch finish, which is going to pull out those nice bright high tones as well. Again, if we look at the base of this cajon, familiar pattern, we have these 4 feet, rubberized plastic feet, which raise the cajon off the floor, and that means that when you're playing the instrument, whatever you sat on, quite often carpet, is not pushing up against this base here and dampening it. So these feet just isolate the cajon from the floor and they allow it to produce its maximum resonance and therefore its best sound. Moving on to the sound of the Classe, very typical of a birch cajon, very typical of the Mezquita range. You get a lovely solid bass tone and you get really lovely cracking high tones. Again, depending on where on this face you hit those high tones, you can introduce more of the bass element by moving those tones down the face or less by moving them up. And also in this mid region here you get a much more bass to middle rich snare sound. But I have done a separate video which helps you understand those features. Solid birch ply finish, and so lovely high popping sounds for the contrast to your other tones. So there we have the Leiva Mezquita Classe. More expensive cajon. You don't at the moment get a free bag with this, although the hope is that that will come very soon. But if you're after something which is a little bit more classy, if you pardon the pun, with a bit more of this intricate artwork, if that's where you're at, if that's what you want, as well as a great sound, then you can't go far wrong with the Classe. Great in live performance, great in the studio, great separation, a cajon that'll stand out in any setting, whether you're mic'd or whether you're playing it acoustically. You get those high tones, those low tones, very little muddying in the middle, and so another beautiful instrument from the Leiva stable. So, hope that's helped, and take care until next time.